Well, Nancy, last podcast we talked about making a resolution, and with a resolution, you make a plan, which brings it about. But I'm going to talk about. I'm going to introduce us to a topic I heard a lot, and there was even a book wrote about it. What about when a plan doesn't come true? And this phrase I'm going to say is the new normal. We've heard that a lot. Even coming through COVID, this is a new normal. What does that look like, Nancy? What's a new normal for a leader?
Well, a leader always knows that when you have a goal, it's not going to be, you start out with a vision and a dream, and the end result may not be exactly what you visioned and dreamed in the front. A leader always knows that. Because you have to take in consideration all the different variables that come your way. And like, for instance, COVID. We didn't plan for COVID, right? A leader is always ready for the opportunity to change projection. So we're constantly taking our plans, we're constantly looking at them, and we're having realistic goals that we are reaching. We put it up there and we say, okay, are we matching those? And if not, you have to adjust. You always have to adjust your journey so that what you started out with in the end may be tremendously, completely different from what you started out with. But that's why leadership is a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to people that I want to get back to normal?
Define normal. What is normal? Define normal.
Well, sometimes when we go back, we want to go back to our past, which feels, what another word would it be, familiar?
It really, when we talk about we want to go back to normal, again, define normal. What defines normal? Who defines normal?
Familiarity.
We want to go back to our security. We are out in uncharted waters. When things happen, life changes. It's always an evolution, right? So when things happen, we are constantly evolving. We are constantly changing. When we talk about we want to have a new normal, okay, this happens on a daily basis. We don't notice it as much except when a tragedy hits us. When a tragedy hits us, it really turns our projection. It really turns our life. Why? Because we look through different lenses. We have different lenses on. We can never undo or never unexperience what we just experienced. So through our experiences, our lenses comes from our experiences, our perception, our understanding at where we're at that point in time. When a tragedy happens, we can never undo what we just saw, right? So it changes our lenses. It changes our perspective. So we are now going down a different path, uncharted waters. So when we talk about the new normal, or we just want to go back to normal, again, define normal. When you were back at, quote, normal, were you actually normal? No, you were just being secure. You want to go back. We want to go back to security. When our world has been rocked, which a tragedy does that, we want to go back to security.
Well, another word would be safety too, right?
Security and safety, yes, all that. It all goes in, yes, it all goes in together. So how do we learn to live in this, quote, new normal?
Exactly.
We learn to find our security. What do I mean by that? All right. A leader is going to look at the opportunities in front of them. And we're going to learn. And sometimes it really means you have to find your identity. You have to really know who you are. What was working for you in the past is no longer working for you today. So you have to know your identity. You have to know who you are. You have to know what defines you, what moves you. That's where you're going to find your security. That's where you're going to find your rest. It's not in the past. You can go back. But see, that's the thing. You can never go back because it's never going to be the same, because now you're going back with different lenses, different perspective. Because, okay, for instance, we always know that a house fire can happen, correct? So we put in our smoke detectors, we put in all this stuff, we take these precautions, and we always know it can happen. In our normal, it can happen. But we feel secure in our smoke detectors and all this different things, which is really good, right? But now say your house explodes. your house explodes. It totally rocks your safety in those, what you had. Once you had safety, you could go to bed at night and you could have safety in the fact of those smoke detectors. But here's the thing. The smoke detectors couldn't detect a gas leak, which went boom, right?
Correct.
So now you can never go back and feel in your new normal. You can never go back to the normal where you used to be secure in those smoke detectors. You're now looking through a complete different lens. We never thought of possibly looking at the gas exploding, right? So now in our new normal, we have to find out a way of how can we get back to that feeling of security in the smoke detectors. But you can never do that. You can go back to those smoke detectors, but you'll never feel safe with them again because you rocked your world. That would just be a metaphor of what I'm talking about. Where you can never, once you've experienced tragedy, once you've experienced it in your life, you can never go back to, quote, normal.
Well, and let's talk on another again. We talked about normal being safety and security. What about loss? When a leader goes through a loss?
Well, that would be a tragedy. That would be one of those situations that rock our world.
So do we just go right back to, do we just use that mentality, or do we experience the loss, and how long do we experience the loss, and how do we feel? Because sometimes when you experience a great loss, that kind of throws you off your horse.
Right.
So what's the pathway there? Because sometimes there's a loss and it hurts so much. And you want
James, for the majority,
and you want to bring that person back or whatever.
Right. A house exploding is a loss. Everything we're talking about is a loss. When tragedy happens, that's a loss. It is never, you can never undo that. It's a loss. That's why we talk about normal and new normal. We don't talk about normal and new normal in a contents other than it's always in the contents of something lost. Right? If I lose a job, what's the new normal? Because that was my career, that was my life. If I lose a loved one, what's the new normal? Because that was my security, that was my safety. So we always use the terms normal and new normal surrounding loss. So that's what I'm saying is we are finding in this new, quote, this new normal. How do we get back? We're finding where we're secure. We were holding on to some security.
Yes.
That's the normal. That's what we want to get back to. There's also another thing that comes into mind is routine. We're also looking at a routine. We were in before this loss, before this tragedy happened, right? We were in a routine. Everything, we didn't have to think about anything. We just, we get up every morning, we go to the gym, we do this, and nothing, we really never really paid attention to anything around us because we were in this security, this safe space that nothing's going to happen, right? That's the thing. Then all of a sudden, boom, our house explodes, or boom, we lose someone, and now it rocks our world. Now we don't know. We're totally out of control. Out of control would be the next word. We're totally out of control, right? So routine is another really good thing, but it really goes back to the fact, okay, loss.
So routine, so we're talking about normal now. Routine, safety.
Right. When you define normal, that would have been routine. Exactly what you did say earlier, familiarity. That's routine. Nothing changes, right? Change is something that not many people want to embrace change. It's very scary because it's the unknown. We're going into the unknown.
There's that word change that people
that's right.
Like.
We do not like change. But when we experience a loss, change is an effect of that.
But we resist change.
We resist it, but we cannot. It's not a choice. When we experience a loss, change is inevitable. It's not a It's not a choice. For instance, change. Okay, you lose a loved one. Your holidays are never going to be the same because that loved one's not going to be sitting around the table. So it's a change. Or you're never going to be able to go to grandma's house. Grandma's not there anymore. It's a change. Or a loved one, even a spouse, anything, it's a change. So a loss always equals a change. My house explodes. I now have to build a new one. It's a change. We don't want to do change. Change is not something we embrace.
No.
But when tragedy happens, when we experience this loss, we have to change. It's an effect, cause and effect.
Do we have to, or can we hang on to the past in our own mind and not come to acceptance?
How can you hold on to your own past? How can you hold on to your own past? Okay, no matter what you do,
you live in it. You continue to live vicariously through.
No matter what you do, grandma's never going to come to your Thanksgiving again. How can that not be a change? How can you not, whether you accept it or not, how is that not a change, James? How are you going to keep grandma's never going to come to your Thanksgiving dinner again. So we go into this called self-soothing mode that we're just not going to accept it. And we're just going to get into the new normal. You're lying to yourself. You can never go back to the normal. You never can.
Yeah. Or we don't experience the sadness of it, and it would never happen.
Right, but that's the thing. We can experience the sadness that it never happened, but you can never deny grandma happened. Because if grandma wasn't there, you wouldn't be existence.
Because you can fortify, you can say, okay, the smoke detectors, you can go on the porch and make it safe. I just won't be in the house anymore. Because the smoke detectors are on. I'll sleep out on the porch.
Well, you can do that. That's really a good idea. You could actually go live in the woods, build yourself a little teepee. That'll never explode. Yeah. That's true. But truly, is anyone going to do that? No. Mm-hmm. No. Because we want that luxurious of our own home. We want that luxurious feeling of being able to come home and go to our own bed. So we're not going to just sit on the porch and say, I'm never going into my house again.
Or we find an upgrade for the smoke detectors and make sure it doesn't happen again.
That is what I'm talking about, finding your security again.
Yes.
But that's not what you're talking about, where you say like it never happened. Because if it never happened, that's what I'm saying. When people say that they're not accepting it, you cannot accept it, but it doesn't matter. Whether you accept it or not, you're still becoming changed. You're still becoming a new person, whether you accept it or not. Whether you accept it or not, you can never go back to feeling safe with the smoke detectors, whether you accept it or not. So, yes, you can go to extreme measures. You could sleep outside because it's, quote, safe. But who's going to do that? No one's going to actually do that. Because, again, to do that means I have to give up the luxuries of my home. I have to give up the luxuries of my bed. Am I really going to do that, to sleep on the carpet? To sleep on the grass? That doesn't make any logical sense at all. No, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to self-soothe. I'm going to lie to myself.
I like
that's really what it is.
You've been introducing a new word, self-soothing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so self-soothing is basically saying, well, it wasn't that bad. Okay. Avoid embracing our sadness. That's what we do. That is what we can do. We can continue to bottle that down, press that sadness down. But again, no matter what, you're still going to access sadness. That's just, we're created that way. You cannot undo what you're going to create. So you're going to continue to bottle it down, but you're still accessing sadness. And it's going to come out somewhere. Because every time, again, around the Thanksgiving dinner, you're going to see that empty table, that empty chair. Versus if you actually embrace the sadness and you really embrace and you really mourn grandma's death. What does that mean? What does that mean that she's no longer there, that I can no longer go to her? What does that mean? And also with grieving comes anger, right? It's one of the stages that comes with that. So you also embrace that anger. Embrace the anger. Okay, anger is you've been violated. Grandma shouldn't have had to die. So when we really embrace those and we really emotionally cleanse, through that we get our new routine, our new safety, our new, quote, normal. We can continue to move forward because we're now going to look at, because we have different lenses on, right? So now we see things that we never saw before. Going back to the house, right? Exactly what you said. We're going to upgrade. We're going to upgrade because we cannot feel, but I'm not going to do that if I don't embrace the actual feeling of what it felt like. Total, complete helplessness watching my home just go kaboom. Where I had faith in those fire things, I can't embrace that until I actually embrace. And again, through that, you're also going to have, again, grieving, anger. You've been violated. You didn't deserve to have your house go boom. But once you really embrace those and really feel those, then you're going to come up with your new routine and your new safety.
And as you've been talking, Nancy, I hear the new normal. Something about what you're describing doesn't sound like a new normal. What it sounds like to me is a better phrase, a new opportunity.
That's exactly true. It goes back to what I talked about.
Because when you really beat up normal over the last 5 minutes here, it's not normal.
Who defines normal? What does it mean?
How do you have a new normal when it's going to blow up again?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what does it mean? Who defines?
Why do we go back to a new normal?
Who defines? That's exactly what I'm saying. Who defines normal? Who defines what normal is, right? Who defines what a new normal is, right? So, James, that's what I was saying is who defines a new normal? Who defines normal, right? So this is exactly what you said, a new opportunity. A new opportunity for us to change, to embrace what we came through. And see, when we embrace our sadness, the gift we get from sadness is sensitivity. When we feel our own sadness, our own loss, we are now going to be sensitive to those around us when they have their loss. And out of that comes empathy, which we've been talking about, that we feel that there's a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding. Nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. But when I totally embrace my own sadness, my own loss, I can now have a sensitivity to those around me, and I can become very empathetic to those around me.
And that's where we're calling, again, in 2022, we're asking, what are your opportunities out there? Mm-hmm. What are your opportunities, as you just said, to impact out of the loss, out of the pain we've came through? What are those opportunities to impact the way you've never impacted before?
Exactly.
Any other great wisdom today, Nancy?
No, James, I definitely enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Well, we want to encourage you to reach out to us. Orange, the color orange, roseservices.com. Also, email james@orangeroseservices.com. Let us know your opportunities. Let us know what you see that is in your horizon. And we want to be an encouragement to everyone out there as we continue another podcast in 2022. Have a great week.